When someone says Scotty Kilmer, what car pops into your head? A 300,000-mile Toyota? A CVT about to explode? A German money pit he's yelling at? Well, rev up your engines because in this video, I'm defining what it means to be Scotty Kilmer using the 7 cars that best represent his worldview. And if I miss one, let me know in the comments. Number 1. Toyota Celica, the origin of the Scottyverse. If you want to understand Scotty Kilmer, you don't start with YouTube. You start with a 1994 Toyota Celica. Because that car isn't transportation, it's doctrine. Naturally aspirated 1.8-liter engine, no turbo, no CVT, no direct injection, no software updates, just fuel, spark, compression, and parts you can actually see when you open the hood. That Celica has over 300,000 miles on it, and in Scotty's logic, that's not luck, that's proof. Proof that simple, conservative engineering survives bad owners, missed oil changes, and life itself. If the world ends, Scotty thinks the Celica will still start. And this is where the Toyota bias comes from. When you spend decades watching complicated cars bankrupt people, and then you personally own something that refuses to die, you don't just like the brand, you trust it. The Celica existed in a mechanical sweet spot. Mature fuel injection, conventional transmissions, no turbo heat stress, no software dependency. It wasn't optimized, it was durable. That car is his control group. Everything else is the experiment. If it runs forever, it's good. If it doesn't, it's probably German. Number 2. 2013 through 2018 Nissan Altima, the CVT villain. In a world where Scotty Kilmer is a superhero, the mid-2010s Nissan Altima is the villain. This is where the yelling hits full volume. Because to Scotty, a CVT isn't just a different transmission. It's a betrayal. Instead of fixed gears, you get a belt riding between pulleys, constantly adjusting to chase fuel economy numbers. On paper, it's smooth and efficient. In early real-world versions, it ran hot, wore out, and when it failed, you didn't rebuild it. You replaced it. And that's what made him furious. A traditional automatic could often be repaired. An early Jatco CVT in an Altima often meant a $4,000 replacement in a $6,000 car. That great deal suddenly became a financial ambush. Scotty doesn't hate CVTs because they feel weird. He hates them because they compress the ownership curve. Instead of aging gradually, the car falls off a cliff. Now, yes, not all CVTs are the same. Some improved, some aren't even belt-driven. But Scotty argues from patterns. People walked in with Altimas, they walked out confused and poorer. After enough of that, you stop calling it innovation and you start calling it an expiration date. Number 3. Ford F-150 3.5-liter EcoBoost, the turbo era. If the Altima represents sudden transmission cliffs, the turbocharged F-150 represents something Scotty distrusts even more: modern optimization. Because when Ford replaced a big lazy V8 with a twin-turbo V6, that wasn't just engineering. That was a philosophy shift. Smaller engine, higher pressure, more boost, more heat. And Scotty does not trust heat. The EcoBoost makes huge torque. It tows well. It beats emissions targets. On paper, it's brilliant. But Scotty's brain immediately goes to stress. Higher cylinder pressure means tighter tolerances. Tighter tolerances mean less forgiveness. A 90s naturally aspirated engine loafed through life. A turbo engine works harder every time you touch the throttle. Oil matters more. Cooling matters more. Maintenance matters more. And average owners are not maintenance monks. So when Scotty yells, "There's no free lunch in physics," underneath the volume, he has a point. You don't squeeze V8 power out of a smaller engine without trade-offs. Are modern turbos ticking time bombs? No, they've improved. But they demand discipline. And Scotty builds advice for average owners, not perfect ones. In his world, the Camry was forgiving. The EcoBoost is optimized. And optimized machines don't forgive. Now, we leave combustion entirely. Because the next car doesn't run on boost, it runs on software. Number 4, 1998 Toyota Camry. Simplicity is king. If the Celica built the faith, the 1998 Camry shows you what Scotty actually worships: simplicity. A 2.2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder port fuel injection, a 4-speed automatic, physical buttons, hydraulic steering, no turbo plumbing, no CVT belts, no touchscreen arguing with you. Nothing fancy, and that's the point. The late 90s Camry wasn't optimized. It wasn't chasing peak horsepower per cubic inch. It wasn't squeezing efficiency through software tricks. It was a machine designed to do its job and not surprise you. And Scotty hates surprises. Modern cars are faster, cleaner, more efficient, but they run closer to the edge. Higher compression, direct injection, 10-speed transmissions, layers of software talking to layers of modules. More performance, less forgiving. To Scotty, the Camry represents the last era before engineering became optimization theater. He doesn't worship Toyota. He worships simplicity because simple cars break simply, and complicated cars break expensively. Number 5, Tesla Model S, the software car. If the EcoBoost represents mechanical optimization, the Tesla Model S represents something Scotty finds even more unsettling: dependency. Not on oil, not on heat cycles, on software. When Scotty looks at a Model S, he doesn't see instant torque. He sees a car you can't fix with a wrench. No carburetor, no alternator swap in the driveway, no throttle cable to adjust. Instead, you get battery packs, sealed assemblies, over-the-air updates, and door handles that only work when the software feels like it. And that's where his worldview collides with modern engineering. Scotty grew up replacing parts. In a Tesla, you often replace systems. Sometimes proprietary ones, sometimes expensive ones. Now, battery degradation isn't the apocalypse some claim. Plenty of Teslas go the distance. But when a battery pack does need replacement, the cost curve changes fast. That's what Scotty fixates on, not daily usability, long-term math. Electric drivetrains are mechanically simpler, but they trade wrenches for integration. Scotty trusts failures he can hear and see. Software feels opaque. So when he says EVs are fine until they break, what he's reacting to isn't electricity, it's loss of control. And in his world, a car that updates over Wi-Fi feels less like ownership and more like a subscription. Number 6, BMW 3 Series, E90, the dealer economics trap. If the Tesla represents software dependence, the BMW E90 represents something Scotty has been yelling about for decades: labor cost plus over-engineering. On paper, this car is fantastic. Balanced chassis, strong engines, refined ride. It feels expensive because it is expensive. But Scotty doesn't judge cars at 30,000 miles. He judges them at 120,000. And this is where the temperature rises. Plastic cooling systems that age and crack. Electric water pumps that fail suddenly. Tight engine bays that turn a simple repair into a half day of labor. Sensors for everything and warning lights that multiply like rabbits. Individually, none of it sounds catastrophic. Together, it creates cascading repair bills. Scotty doesn't think BMW builds bad cars. He thinks they build cars optimized for performance and leasing cycles, not long-term neglect survival. So when someone gets quoted $1,200 for a water pump, he doesn't see German engineering. He sees margin stacking, high parts cost, high labor rates, high complexity. The Camry aged predictably. The BMW ages expensively. And in Scotty's world, that's not prestige. That's a trap. Number 7, Mercedes-Benz C-Class W204, the luxury money pit. If Toyota is Scotty's religion, Mercedes is his final boss. Because in Scotty's world, European luxury doesn't represent prestige. It represents probability. The probability that something small will fail. The probability it's buried under 3 layers of engineering. And the probability the repair bill won't make emotional sense. Take the W204 C-Class. On paper, it's refined, comfortable, beautifully built. It feels expensive because it was expensive. But Scotty doesn't judge cars at 40,000 miles. He judges them after warranty. Sensors everywhere, modules talking to other modules, tight engine bays, specialized diagnostic tools. When something minor goes wrong, it's rarely just a bulb. It's labor time, it's programming, it's while we're in there. And suddenly that trunk light costs $600. Scotty doesn't think Mercedes is stupid. He thinks it's optimized for refinement, not forgiveness. The Camry aged predictably. The Mercedes ages with invoices. Luxury engineering is intentional. It delivers comfort and performance, but complexity multiplies labor, and labor multiplies cost. So when Scotty says, only buy a Mercedes if you hate money, it's not random yelling. It's pattern recognition. Toyota survives neglect. Mercedes punishes it. And that's the worldview. Runner-up, his wife's Lexus ES300, the real secret. Before we wrap, there's one more car that almost made the list. Scotty's wife's Lexus ES300. The one he picked up for a few $1,000 and proudly talks about like he discovered buried treasure. And this car explains everything. Because while Scotty is out there yelling, "Buy a Toyota," and torching German luxury, his own household rolls in a Lexus. Why? Because it's basically a Camry in a tuxedo. Smooth V6, no turbo drama, no CVT. Toyota engineering underneath, leather and quiet on top. He mentioned that when it finally wears out, she wants another Lexus. And that's the real Scotty formula. Keep the wife comfortable. Keep the maintenance predictable. Keep the engineering boring. He hates complexity, unless it's reliable. That ES300 isn't hypocrisy, it's confirmation. Under the yelling, the clickbait titles, and the waving hands, Scotty's rule is simple. Toyota reliability, even when it's wearing luxury badges. So there you have it. Scotty Kilmer explained in 7 cars. The Celica built the faith. The Camry set the benchmark. The Altima showed him what a cost cliff looks like. The EcoBoost proved optimization has trade-offs. The Tesla challenged his belief in mechanical ownership. The BMW exposed labor economics. And the Mercedes represents the luxury complexity he'll probably never trust. Love him or argue with him in the comments. There's a pattern. Scotty isn't just yelling because it's entertaining. He's reacting to an industry that shifted from durable and repairable to optimized and integrated. From machines you fixed in your driveway to systems you diagnose with a laptop. His bias isn't random. It's decades of watching what fails, when it fails, and how much it costs. You don't have to argue with every rant. I don't either. But once you understand the cars that shaped his worldview, the volume starts to make sense. And if you enjoy breaking down car myths, ownership traps, and the real economics behind what we drive, that's what this channel's all about. Scotty-inspired skepticism. Just a little less tinnitus. So subscribe if you want more of that. Rev up your engines, and maybe check your transmission fluid while you're at it.